Okay, I'll switch off the camera, but you can again confirm if you can see the PPT. Okay, so PPT visible. Thank you very much for confirming that the PPT is visible. Okay, as let me. Okay, yeah. 32.3 in today's CDX. Can I get to 45.50 in 1 month? Yes, you can get to a 40 plus very easily in 1 month. Okay, but let's get down to first understanding how the paper should be attempted, rather than worrying about what is the score you have got in CDX. Okay, so we'll come to CDXs also separately. Tomorrow we have a session. We'll be discussing the CDX tomorrow. So let's worry about CDX tomorrow. Right now, let us try and understand what is that, what is this animal called that, how it should be tackled, and then what are the things you should be careful about. Okay, as I've always maintained, there's a way you take a paper, and as far as that is concerned, there's a specific strategy in place. Okay. Yes, Aditi, 20 days are enough to get a good score in that. Okay. Let me just see. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's get down to business. Yeah. Okay, these are the two things that we'll be looking at. First, we need to understand what is this paper all about. How is it different from CAT, NMAT, and the other papers that you have taken, IFT, for example, and what is the right strategy? How do you go about attempting this paper? What are the things you should be looking at? So these are the two things that we will be addressing in today's session. Okay. My guess is this entire session should be about 60 minutes or so. Okay, and after that we'll have 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A. Okay, so my guess is we should be done with the session by about 8 p.m. Okay, so that's the timeline we have, so that you can also plan accordingly. Okay. Okay. So first thing, let's look at what are the things we know and what are the things we don't know. At this point of time, we know the paper is on 2nd January. It's a 3-hour paper, and what we don't know, what has been told, what has not been told to us, is how many sections, what question types, what is the marking scheme, cutoff, sectional time limits or no, those kind of things are by and large not known to us. However, if you look at the past papers of XAT, we can make a reasonable estimate, and XAT is a fairly stable paper. Unlike CAT, which tries to give you a surprise, XAT does not do that. So if you look at the past, XAT has had 3 sections. Okay, 3 sections. First section is verbal and reading comprehension. Second is decision making, which is a new kind of section. Yes, Satandeep, this is a kind of a repeat. It will be similar to what we had done earlier, Jijo and I. Okay. Okay. Second section is decision making, and third section is quantitative aptitude. Typically, this paper, and okay, then there's a fourth section called GK. Typically, these 3 sections are given about 165 minutes, and GK is 15 minutes, which adds up to 180 minutes or 3 hours. Okay, so this is the broad schema of the paper in terms of number of sections. Okay, so what question types? The question types we'll discuss in detail, but broadly speaking, when you look at QA, the question types will be similar to what you have seen in CAT and IFT. As far as VRC is concerned, again, it is going to be reading comprehension, critical reasoning, and a few questions of grammar and vocabulary also, but not too many. Decision making is a black box for many of you. Some of you may have attended my first session on decision making a couple of days ago. I'll be having the second session in the coming week. But when we discuss the CDX tomorrow, you will be again able to see that that you can also treat that as some kind of let's say primer to decision making. Okay, marking scheme as far as that is concerned is +1 for correct answer, minus 0.25 for incorrect answer. So correct answer, incorrect answer. There's something about that which is not there for other papers as far as unattempted questions are concerned. first 8 questions, no penalty. And beyond these, okay, 9 question onwards, you get a negative marking of minus 0.10. Okay. So first 8 questions, there is no negative marking for unattempted questions. And beyond that, there's going to be a minus 0.01. Okay. So Mesh, it will be helpful if you just focus on the session. I will be these questions, if they are not answered in the course of the session, you can always ask them at the end in the Q&A. Okay. Now, many a times students are really worried about this negative marking for unattempted questions. Now, I want you to understand just a couple of things. One, negative marking for wrong answers minus 0.25 and for unattempted is minus 0.01, which straight away means it is better to have an unattempted question than a wrong answer. Okay, an unattempted is better than incorrect. There is no doubt about it. Secondly, let us understand what is the scale. Typically, if you look at the last couple of years, there are going to be 75 questions. Okay, about 28 questions out here in quant, 21 in DM, and 26 in verbal. If you look at last 2 years, this is the pattern which has been there. So 75 questions. So out of 75 questions, if you attempt 50 questions, which will mean unattempted questions are 25. Out of these unattempted 25 questions, there will be first 8 will be no negative marking. And for the remaining 17, you'll have a negative marking of 0.1. So what is your total loss going to be? 1.7 marks. Okay. So your total loss in terms of negative marking for unattempted is going to be in this range only, because most of you will be attempting between 45 to 55 questions. Even if you say you are attempting only 45 questions, you're talking about 2 marks loss. So there's nothing to be really worried about. My suggestion is unattempted questions, ignore. You mark an answer only if you know how to solve. Don't mark an answer just to avoid the negative marking of unattempted questions. Okay. Okay. So as usual, when I look at the paper, I try to look at the trends, the way the paper has been structured, what are the things which are asked, and so on and so forth, and try to work out a strategy based on that, and that is what we'll be looking at. Okay. Now that by and large is a different kind of paper, but some of these and what is the history that I've already shared. Verbal ability, logical reasoning, okay, decision making, QADI, and marking scheme I have already explained. Yes, I forgot to mention there are 5 answer choices in each question. Okay, because there are 5 answer choices, hence you have a negative marking of minus 0.25. Okay. Just for the record, 26 questions here in the last 3 odd years, 21 questions and 28 questions, and this is typically 25 questions. And just to repeat what I said earlier, this is typically in 165 minutes, and this is 15 minutes. 15 minutes is excessive actually. You will find you will be done with this section in 5 to 6 minutes, and the rest 10 odd minutes will be just looking around and seeing what others are doing. Okay. Secondly, your percentile calculation is based on this, what is called part 1. So as far as that is concerned, they call it part 1, and this is part 2. So percentile calculation is based on part 1 or the aptitude portion only. This is not considered at all for percentile calculation, and this is considered only by XLRE. And that also at the time of the interview, they will look at this section. And if they find you excessively weak, they might ask you a few questions. Most of the time, a score of about 5 to 6 marks is sufficient as far as this particular section is concerned. Okay. Okay. So I hope this clears the paper pattern completely. Okay. Yeah. Just to repeat what I had said earlier, what I've just said, in terms of numbers, 75, 25, no one knows why it was 74 or why this. Okay, by and large, this has been the case. Okay. Yeah. So just to repeat, this is your percentile part. Okay. Now, why was this 40 minutes or 35 minutes here? Because at that point of time, this was GK plus essay. So this used to be a GK plus essay. There was an essay also which they asked people to write. Now that has been replaced with a VAT to be written at the time of the interview. So essay has been removed from here, and when you go for the XLRA interview, there will be a VAT topic which will be given to you to write, and that will be evaluated separately. Okay. Yes, Ashish, 5 options is a bit of an issue. It does not matter much. It creates a problem for people like me who believe in eliminating choices. Okay? But frankly, it's not too big a deal. Okay. Now, when you look at XAT and compare with CAT, what you need to remember, XAT is essentially a comprehension paper. When I say comprehension, both the verbal section and the decision-making section. So if you look at the last few years, 47 out of 75, 47 out of 75, 47 out of 74, 45 out of 74. So when you look at it, this is almost a 63, 64% of the paper is comprehension based. When I say comprehension, I'm not saying decision making is equal to reading comprehension. That is not what I'm saying. It is not same as reading comprehension, but at the end of the day, this is a paper in which you'll need to read much more than in CAT. Okay. Verbal ability, logical ability, and when it says logical ability, it is referring more to critical reasoning. It does not mean the DILR that you get in CAT. DI is a part of quantitative aptitude. Okay. So the first thing is, this is the first thing which I want you to always remember, that XAT is essentially about comprehension. It is not about quant maths, and you'll find the quant in XAT to be almost the same as that you have seen in CAT. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's essentially a comprehension. CAT had only about 1/3 of the paper which is comprehension, and balance 2/3 is more of mathematical. You'll find the time per question is significantly higher, about 20-25% more than what you get in CAT. Okay. No sectional time limits. Now, this is both a positive and a negative depending upon the way you look at it. CAT has a sectional time limit. For someone like me, I have never liked papers with sectional time limits. I've always preferred papers which don't have sectional time limit, but that's a personal preference. And for some of you, this will turn out to be positive. For some of you, this will be something that you will not be happy with. Okay. CAT has theta question. There's nothing of that sort in that. 5 answer choices, as I said earlier, as compared to 4 in CAT. And negative marking for unattempted question is there in that. And as I said, for unattempted question beyond the first 8. So first 8 question, no negative marking for unattempted. Beyond that, minus 0.01 per question. And that 1.5 or 2 marks that you have negative for unattempted question will be distributed between the 3 sections. Okay, so that's essentially what this paper is all about. Now, one of the other differences that I have already talked about, I'll still highlight again, is decision-making section. So you can say CAT has DILR, but as far as DI is concerned in CAT, DILR of CAT, you can say DILR is a part of quantitative aptitude, though the number of questions is fewer, but by and large, it is still a part of quantitative aptitude. And what you have in terms of decision-making in that, it's a completely new ball game, and we'll discuss it today. Okay. Percentile cutoffs. Okay. Now, XAT has always also started giving some kind of, let's say, diversity points. They don't give too much, but you'll find there's a small 5 percentile gap between these sectional cutoffs for boys and girls. Okay. Approximately 5 percentile as far as BM is concerned. And when you look at the sectional cut or the overall cutoff, again you'll find about 3 to 5 percentile gap between the two. Okay. So it varies by and large. Essentially, I'm not worried about the overall cutoff. To me, it is the sectional cutoff which is important. Okay. As far as BM is concerned, there's a business management program. And when it comes to HRM, now there's a further segregation. As far as quantitative aptitude is concerned, this will be engineers. This is non-engineers. Same thing. This is for girl engineers, and this is for girls non-engineers. Okay. 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 So if I forget about rest of the stuff, okay, if I forget about rest of the stuff, by and large, you should say, as far as BM is concerned, if I look at the 3-section verbal ability, logical reasoning, then we have a decision making, and we have quantitative aptitude. The rule of thumb is about 75 percentile in each and about 85 percentile in QA. This is the rule of thumb for boys. Okay. For girls, you could say 5 percentile less, minus 5 percentile for girls. As far as HRM is concerned, okay, HRM is concerned, verbal ability will go high, slightly higher. Okay. Earlier it used to be more, but now it has stabilized at about 80 percentile. Okay. DM is the same in both the cases. Okay. And as far as QA is concerned, again it goes down to 80. Okay. And obviously, if it is girls, okay, if I look at this for boys, for girls it's going to be something like 75, okay, 70, and 75. And if I say girl, non-engineer, another 5 percentile you can reduce from here. Boys non-engineer and girls would be roughly the same. Okay. So look at this. Boys non-engineer and girl engineers are roughly the same. Boys non-engineer, girl engineer are roughly the same. Okay. So this is what the schema is. So don't worry about this boy-girl segregation. Look at it this way: a score of about 80 percentile in VALR, a score of about 75 percentile in DM, and a 85 percentile. So if you have a 80, 75, 85 in the 3 sections, you will get both the calls. This is the ground rule you need to look at. Yes, there's an overall cutoff also, and overall cutoff for BM is typically about 95 percentile, and HRM is typically about 90 percentile. So it is 95 and 90, but again, that boy-girl segregation has skewed things a little. Okay. Okay. Any issue with the percentile part? Okay. Yes, Rohit, extremely important question. I'll come to that question now. Let me go to the cutoff. While that percentile is great, percentile is a meaningless number for all of us. Ultimately, it is marks which you have asked for, Rohit, that we need to look at. And when you are discussing this, I want you to ignore this paper of XAT 2020. I'll come back to it later. Why should you ignore it in terms of cutoffs? This is not what you should be looking at. Okay, this is not what you should be looking at. You need to look at and again look at the higher of the two numbers. A score of 9 in BM, 8.5 in DM, and 10.5 in QA would have meant you would have cleared sectional cutoff for both XAT 21, the BM and HRM in XAT 21. And again, these are for boys. As far as girls are concerned, you can reduce 0.5 marks for each of them. So it is 8 for boys, it will be about 7.5 for girls. HRM, this is 9 for boys, it will be about 8.5 for girls. Similarly, 8.5 and 8 and 8 and 7.5. Okay, so you can reduce it by about 0.5 marks. Similarly, when you come to QADI, it will be boys 8. Let me say boys engineers and non-engineer 8, 7.5. Girls will be engineers will be 7.5 and non-engineer will be 7. Okay, so which is I'm saying, don't worry about this boy-girl segregation. You look at what is the number that is useful for you. Okay, and the useful number out here is 9, 8.5, and 10.5. If you add up 10, 8, 18, 27, that adds up to about 28 marks. As I said, forget about the 2020 paper, look at 2019 paper. About 9, 18, 18 and approximately 11, 29. Okay, go to the previous year, about 8, about 8.5, 11.5. Okay, so about 28, 29 again is what we are looking at. So the rule of thumb again is you should target a double-digit score. In VALR and DM. A score of 10 in these two means you are absolutely safe. You have definitely cleared the cutoff. And you should target approximately, let's say 11 to 11.5 marks in QA. Okay. So something like a 10, 10, 12. You will be at your minimum target. Okay. However, what we need to understand as far as that is concerned, in the final conversion formula, that has a weightage of 65%. Okay, that has a 65% weight, and rest of the stuff, the interview and the other stuff, has a 35% weight. From that point of view, I would say a safe score should be about 35, 36. If you're about 35, 36, I think you can comfortably look at converting without too much of a hassle. Yes, your interview performance is still critical. Remember, without a good interview, still not convert. But your target has to be a bare minimum, not of 32. Your target has to be a bare minimum of 35, 36. Okay. Now, why am I saying that? I'll come back to this again. This is the score. This is the table which is important for you from the overall percentile criteria. I hope this is fine. And no issues on this particular slide. Okay, great. So let's go to the next one. Now, this is what you need to remember. A score of about 30 is 95 percentile, 35 is 95 percentile. This is the minimum score that you should be targeting, minimum target score. This is what you should be looking at. Okay, this is what I will be calling my target. I would want to get a score of about 40 so that I am 99 plus. Okay. So beyond 40, the climb is fairly steep. And what does 40 mean? 40 means about, okay, supposing you are good in QA. That means you will be able to get about 18 marks in QA, 17 to 18 marks. Okay. And that means you need to have another 10 to 11 marks in the remaining two sections. Okay. About, let's say, 11 each. If you are good in, let's say, verbal. If you are good in verbal, here you can get about 17 to 18 and about 11 to 12 in each of the other section. So whichever section you think you are very, very good at, that is the section you need to say, can I get to around 20 marks? So if you are good in a particular section, you should say, let me try and get, and here I'm talking about essentially QA and VA verbal. If you're strong in VA, look at getting 17, 18, 19, 20 marks out here. If you're strong in verbal, that's your strong area, you need to look at a similar kind of score out here. Okay. As far as DM is concerned, out of 21 questions, getting a score of 15, 16 is possible. Going beyond 15, 16 is usually a challenge. Going beyond 15, 16 is usually a challenge because this is a section which is somewhat subjective. I'll not say significantly subjective, but there's some subjectivity involved. And I've never found anyone getting all 21 right. Yes, Rishabh, these are all out of 75 without GK. Okay. This is part 1 score, which means without GK. Okay. So as far as DM is concerned, a score of 15, going beyond 15, 16 is usually going to be a very, very big challenge. At about 15 or 15 and a half, you will be something like a 99.89 percentile in this particular section. Okay. So remember, don't look at getting 18, 20 in DM. You should say either in QA or in verbal, I'll get 17, 18, 20. In DM, I can get anything from 10 to 15. In the other section, I'll get 11, 12. And you will be at 40, if not more. Okay. Okay. Just to repeat, 165 minutes, there is the breakup. Okay, this is what I'm expecting XAT to be. XAT 2022, this is what I would expect. And as I said, the reason is XAT is fairly stable. And you have seen the earlier papers also. By and large, this is the kind of pattern which has been there. Okay. Now let's look at the verbal section and try to understand what this section is all about. Okay. Now, if you notice, okay, how many questions are verbal out here? This is 26 questions. Ashish will come to time distribution in a short while. Deepankar, there's always a possibility of pattern change. No one can ever rule it out. However, given the way the paper has happened, again, I'll just go back. Please look at this 17, 18, 19, 20. Look at the pattern. So, and whenever XAT has made the change, they have announced in advance. This time there's nothing announced, so I'm assuming it is going to be a similar structure, similar pattern. However, if there's a change in pattern, it should not matter because it will be a change for everyone. Okay, but from your point of view, I'll say assume this is going to be the paper. Okay. Now, one of the things that you'll look at is this 26. This is again 26 questions. Please look at this fact that half or more than half of the paper is reading comprehension. And there's a poem which is there for comprehension. So if you add up the two of them, 17 questions out here. Khushi, I'll just go back, give me a few minutes. 14 questions here. 14 questions. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So if you look at it, about more than half the paper is going to be reading comprehension and poem comprehension. And if I add the critical reasoning part to it also, because the skills required for reading comprehension, as far as that is concerned, is similar to that we get in critical reasoning. Unlike CAT, where you have some factual question, this is going to be, as far as the passages are concerned, the passages will be okay, easy to read, you'll understand, they'll not be difficult, but the questions will be by and large inferential. Okay. So as far as questions are concerned, there'll be more of critical reasoning kind question in reading comprehension. And hence this becomes a little difficult. And which is why when I look at this paper, I don't classify these three separately. For me, these three are the same thing. 15 to 17 and 3, 20. 14 and 6, 20. Okay. 14 and 5, 19. 15 and 5, 20. Now, this is what I want you to understand. That 20 out of 26 questions are going to be by and large critical reasoning, essential kind of questions. It is the inference which is going to be important. Very few factual or specific detailed questions. Out of these 20 odd questions between reading comprehension, poem, and critical reasoning, we'll get maybe 2 to 4 questions out here, on an average 3 questions out here, which are going to be factual or specific detailed questions. The balanced 17 odd questions will be completely critical reasoning or inferential kind of questions, which will be a little difficult to handle and can be a little tricky also. That is what you need to practice. Okay. So when you're practicing for XAT, please remember you need to focus on critical reasoning. Many times people worry a lot about vocabulary, but look at fill in the blank. Yeah. Maximum is 5. That has happened only once. Typically, it is a couple of questions. Okay. Grammar, again, it keeps coming and going. Couple of questions. This is not going to be easy. Parajumbles typically are easy. They are easy because they have choices. Okay. You have choices and you will be able to get to the answers fairly fast. Okay. I'll just go back to the cutoff slide for the benefit of those of you who want to see it again. Okay, let me just erase the stuff. Yeah, I'll stay on the slide for 30 seconds, then I'll go back. Okay. And Khushi, there's a second slide which is important. Maybe you could note down this also. What was wrong with XAT 2020? Extremely important. I should have mentioned that. Yes, Rishabh, extremely good question. 30 would be Khushi. This is a table which you need to note down. Okay. What is wrong with that 2020? This is wrong. And this is wrong. The issue in both these sections was large number, many questions were very, very subjective. Okay. Very, very subjective questions. And I would say the answers which they had given, many of us don't agree with those answers. Okay. And many of us are those who routinely get a 99.9 plus percentile in that verbal and DM. Okay. So many of us were completely in disagreement, and which reflected in the scores also. Look at this 2.6 cutoff for verbal. It's completely unheard of. I have never seen such a low cutoff. The lowest I think I've seen is about 6.5 marks. Okay. And so I will say highly subjective questions and debatable answers, and which is what created a problem, and which is why I would say this is a paper which you should ignore, especially for these two sections. Quant, you can go ahead with it, but as far as these two sections are concerned, you should ignore. Okay. So Rishabh, I hope this explains. Okay. Any question on any doubts? Any question on the verbal section? Okay. Remember, it is an inferential critical reasoning section. It is 20 out of 26 questions typically are going to be the ones which are going to be inferential critical reasoning. Okay, so let me say this is your 6 questions here and roughly 20 questions here. These 20 questions are going to be deciding how well you will do in this paper. Okay. However, if you look at this paper carefully, if you're good in grammar and parajumbles, you can probably come very close to the cutoff using this only. So one of the rules I would suggest always, as far as this paper is concerned, this is where you will get your marks. And as far as these 3 portions are concerned, you should look at getting 5 to 6 correct answers at least. Among parasummary would be if there would be a part of critical reasoning. Critical reasoning would include parasummary also, which is the main idea, for example. The main idea is a parasummary, isn't it? Okay. Okay. So your target has to be that out of these 6 questions, you come close to the cutoff. And even if you get 4 or 5 questions right from here, okay, you will safely clear the cutoff. Please remember, this is an area where you should not do any kind of guesswork. This is the area where you will collect lots of negatives. Don't mark an answer for the sake of marking an answer. Whenever you have doubt, remind yourself that the cutoff is only about 8 or 9 marks. You can get about, as far as verbal ability and logical reasoning is concerned, you can get about 5 marks from verbal ability and 5 marks from the comprehension part. Even if you do that, you would have cleared the cutoff. So if you are weak in the verbal section, please don't take chances. Please don't take chances. Don't do any guesswork in this particular section. If this is your weak area, make sure that whatever you do, you are reasonably sure of the answer. Okay. Secondly, when you are looking at the reading comprehension passages are not tough to read. Okay. 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 So the reading comprehension passage, if you look at the FK grade, not difficult at all. Okay. But what are the questions? Look at main idea, interpretation, one specific detail question, inference, main idea, inference, specific detail. So if you look at XAT 21 paper, out of those, how many questions are these? 15 questions. 1, 2, 3. Only 3 factual or specific detail questions. Everything else is inference. And this is the challenge in XAT. Reading the passage will not be a problem. Reading will be okay. Reading is not going to be an issue at all. It is these questions which are essentially inferential questions which will create a problem for you. And this is where I would say don't rush. Take your time, read. Unlike CAT, this is giving you greater amount of time to read and understand. Remember, the passages also are shorter. An average CAT passage is 450 to 500 words. That is CAT. And if you remember, if you have taken the IFT paper, the length of passage in IFT paper, 2 were of 1000, 1 of 700, 1 of 800. Okay. This was IFT paper. Well, look at here, 226, 432, the longest passage, 378, 175, only 95, 371, except for one passage, and this is also shorter than a normal passage. All the passages are roughly on an average half the size of a CAT passage. Okay? So please remember, these are roughly on an average 50% of the length of a CAT passage. So don't rush. Do not try. I have said this in context of CAT also. I'll say this in context of XAT also. Don't try to save time in reading the passage. Read carefully both the passage and the questions. Okay? Be willing to spend about 1.5 to 2 minutes per question if required. Okay? Read the passage carefully, go to the question, understand the choices, and then, if required, go back to the passage. Very short passage, so you'll be able to handle it. Okay. Very, one example of a poem, last year's poem. Take your time, read it. And can you type in your answer in the chat box? A, B, C, D, E. Type in your answer in the chat box, please. Okay, we have a couple of answers. And I'm sure most of you realize it is not difficult to eliminate choices. So elimination of choices, glad to see that almost all of you have got the right answer. Okay. Almost all of you. There are a couple of A's also, but it is not talking about creating your own meaning of life. And it's not saying no matter what. Both of them. Very easy choice to eliminate. It's not talking about celebration. Okay. It's basically saying relax, chill out. Isn't it? So many times you'll find we will go by the overall, let's say, tone of the passage. In this particular passage, the tone itself is telling me what the answer should be. Okay, it is not talking about eat, drink, and be merry, and don't worry about anything else in life. Okay, sit, drink your coffee here. Your work can wait a while. It can wait. It is not saying you can forget about it completely. You are 26. You have time ahead. Okay, and so on and so forth. The world is opaque, distressing. To sit here in the sun, staring with beady eyes, and you 2 feet away. Okay, so this 20 minutes rendezvous will make my day. Okay, so let's enjoy a moment of peace and busy life. Is absolutely right. Most of you have got it right. Extremely happy to see it, but this is what this paper is all about. Okay, rest of the stuff, as I said, para jumbles with choices. This could be main idea, or it could be your regular critical reasoning kind of questions. Okay, grammar is a variable, vocabulary is a variable. These two are variable, and typically that gives you about 2 questions of 2 questions here, 3 questions here, and as I said, maybe another 3 odd questions, 3 to 4 questions here. But this keeps on changing, and there's not something you can worry about. This is essentially a paper of comprehension. And comprehension, I am saying, reading comprehension, poem comprehension, and critical reasoning. This is going to be about 20 questions, and para jumbles, grammar, vocabulary will be typically about 6 questions. Okay. Try to get 4 to 5 marks here, and try to get at least 5 marks here. If you are good, then you can get about 10 to 12 marks here. If you are good here, you can get 10 to 12. If you are uncomfortable, your target should be to get 5 to 6 marks here. So 4, 5 here, 5, 6 here, you will safely clear the cutoff. Okay. I hope this clears the verbal ability section for you. Okay, let's go to the decision-making section. Now, most of you would have attended my first decision-making section, so you have an idea what this section is all about. But typically, when you look at this particular section, as I had said earlier, this has 21 questions for the last few years. Okay. Okay. XAT 2018 is the last time when you had a mathematical or the LR kind of or a DI kind of a decision-making question. But after that 18, since then we have not had. So if you look at this paper, by and large, the trend has been that this mathematical based questions have been shifted completely to the QADI section. So this has effectively gone to QADI. And what we are left with now is this. If I go back till 2012, 13, 14, 15, DM used to be something like 25, 26 questions. Okay. So that has reduced. And now it is basically the case based or the behavior kind of or the non-analytical decision-making questions. Okay. And these are 6 to 7 cases. Last year, 7 case studies with 3 questions, 7 into 3. The 19 was some with 4, some with 3, some with 2. But by and large, we are talking about 20 odd questions as far as this section is concerned. Okay. Okay. Again, please read and type in your answer in the chat box. If you remember the session, if you attended the session, remember you need to first identify the, what do you need to identify? What is the evaluation criteria? Okay. So the choices we have so far are C, D, and E. Okay, there's an A also. Okay. Now, please go back. Please go back. She was delighted to work under Nirmal, her superior, who was growing many stars in the organization. Nevertheless, he was also regarded a hard taskmaster. Though she was a fresh recruit, she longed to be in a client-facing role. What does this tell you? This tells you that fresh recruits are not typically put in a client-facing role. Okay. So this statement is telling you that fresh recruits are not put in a client-facing role. Okay. During an informal gathering, Himaja mustered up courage to ask Nirmal for a client-facing role. Which of the following reasons, if true, will best justify saying no to Himaja? Okay. Now, if she's asking for a client-facing role and Nirmal has to say no, it can only be on the basis of work and the client. Now, why is it that fresh recruits are not put in a client-facing role is the question you need to ask yourself. Okay? And you can, first choice I will straight away eliminate is E. It is not about young women, it is about fresh recruits. Okay, and this is a kind of a red herring. It's a diversion. It is a trap which has been laid for you. Okay, it is a trap which has been laid for you. And if you have marked E, you have fallen into the trap. Okay, they don't have nowhere does the passage or the data say it is an issue with young women. It is an issue of a fresh recruit. Fresh recruits are not put into client facing. Young woman is a trap. Okay. Now Himaja's teammates have got nothing to do with it. She's a fresh recruit. Fresh recruits are not put into client facing role. Obviously, the reason has to be something to do with the client, not with the teammates. So teammates cannot be the reason out here. Presentation skills, how is it even relevant out here? If I have to get into the client-facing role, again, is it an issue of presentation or is it an issue of something which the client may not be comfortable with? Okay, this is a choice C is a very, very frivolous argument. She leaves early and client meetings go. So she'll say, okay, if this is what Nirmal says, she'll say, okay, I will stay back late. That's not an issue with me. So this is a very, very frivolous kind of a thing. This is completely irrelevant. D, clients, again, these are the only two choices which are about the client. So the issue has to be the client. Whatever is addressing the issue of client has to be looked at. Between D and E, E, as I said, has been eliminated because they don't have an issue with young women. They have an issue with fresh recruits. So clients do not appreciate strategic discussion with fresh recruits is the answer, which again, many of you got it right. Okay. Now, this is the kind of question you'll have. Now, obviously, this means your comprehension skills have to be good. Okay. Of late, XAT has reduced the length of the passages. Otherwise, as far as if you look at the old papers of XAT, you'll also find half a page, 1 page decision-making information. So what is given out here in 6 lines, okay, In many times in the old paper, this would be 16 lines, 20 lines, 25 lines, or the complete slide will be filled with the information. That has gone away. So to that extent, the reading effort has come down, but nevertheless, it's still a comprehension paper. Now, what I want you to remember, DM is not equal to reading comprehension. While comprehension is involved, it is not equal to reading comprehension. You need to identify the evaluation criteria. You need to identify the root cause that has to be addressed. Okay, and which is why I will say, don't look upon this as reading comprehension. Now, these are the different kind of case studies which are given to you: ethics-based decision making, data-driven decision making, dilemmas. Okay, for example, this was a dilemma for Nirmal as to what should he say: strategic decision making, organizational policy, and so on and so forth. Okay, Ajay Sharma, how should we select passive in DM? No selection to be done. All have to be attempted. This is a place where I will say you go from question 1 to question 21 in a sequence. If you get stuck somewhere, you can leave and move on. But by and large, XAT is not a paper in which you need to choose and select and leave. Whether it is verbal, ability, logical reasoning, or DM, you should be able to go through all these 26 plus 21, 47 questions comfortably. There is no time pressure. Okay, this is not a paper in which you have time pressure. Unlike CAT, where you had time pressure, or IFT, which was excessive time pressure, that is not the case. And which is, I would say, you need to look at completing this particular section. Okay, this section can typically be completed comfortably in 45 minutes or so. Maybe if you want, you can go to 50 or even 55 minutes. But typically, to my mind, 45 minutes are good enough to complete this section. Okay. Vivek, we'll come to the sequence of attempts also. Okay, let's look at the QA section. Okay, I'm sure you can see again. If I look at this particular paper, you can see again the similarity with CAT 28. Okay, and this was CAT to XAT 2018. What was the total number of QA questions? Yeah, 27. Yeah. Yeah. Now, again, out of 27, please remove the 9 DM questions out here. DI 9, 4, 3, 7, 6, 6. Now, again, what is this? Arithmetic plus algebra. 10 out of 19. I have removed the data interpretation. 11 out of 21. Again, 11 out of 21. And 10 out of 21. Again, about 50% of the paper of the non-DI portion is going to be arithmetic. Okay? Arithmetic plus algebra. But if I look at these, 19 out of 28. Again, 11 plus 3 to 5, 6, 7. 18 out of 28. 11 plus 6, 17 out of 27. And 10 plus 6, 16 out of 27. This is what you need to be thorough with. This is what you need to be thorough with. Okay. Now, when it says others, this could be typical logic-based question or a pattern-based question. And after arithmetic algebra, the next important topic is geometry. It is not going to be a number system. It is not modern maths. It is not anything else. It is geometry. Okay. So this is where I will say you need to focus. In terms of level of difficulty, you will say the level of difficulty would be something similar to that of CAT. Again, I would say don't go beyond level 2. Level 1 and level 2 question is what you need to look at. And yes, Swati, you can afford to ignore modern maths. Okay. You can afford to comfortably ignore modern maths. Okay, there are a couple of questions. Let me have a look at those questions. Okay, when you will be taking questions. Somesh shall not be taking questions today. Yeah. Other things Somesh shall be covering up in a short while. But it is important to understand the paper first and the technique of attempting the paper. Okay. I'll come to number of odds also, Rishabh, in a few minutes. Okay. Arman, the number of unattempted questions are divided in the three sections in the ratio of the question in the three sections. Okay. So if you have, let's say, 2 marks, you will get about 0.6, 0.5, 0.7 in each of the three sections negative. Okay. So don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. You can say on an average about equally divided between the three sections. GK. Everything under the sun comes in GK. Okay. Everything under the sun comes in GK. So what you need to look at as far as GK is concerned, Manthan, or rather don't do Manthan, go to the compendium. The GK compendium that has been given to you for IFT, etc., that compendium. The other thing is the mocks. I think you have 8 mocks, mock XATs, 8 mocks into 25 questions. That is 200 questions. These 200 questions should definitely do. And don't be surprised that out of these 200 questions, you get some 5-6 questions directly. Okay. Ashish, geometry is not very difficult. Again, remember it is almost similar to CAT as far as geometry is concerned. Pythagorean triplets and other things that we discussed in SQC will be useful. And yes, I should have mentioned this. The SQC techniques will work. Okay. Shishti says, okay, Shishti, the issue is the same. You need to focus on the questions. How can you improve your score in QA? You'll have to again go through those questions again, identify common topics, and revise those questions regularly. Good to see your DM is doing well, but both verbal and QA, you need to focus a lot on the. Okay, Shishti, you could focus on the old XAT papers and the mocks. Okay, I'll come to that. Okay. Now 3 different ways of looking at the paper. This is what I would say is the default method. However, I'm not happy with this default method. Why? Because it is giving equal time to each when I can do this section in a lesser amount of time, and you may need a higher amount of time here. Okay? So the other approach is to say, will be to say, let me not go by the default method. Let me to begin with get 45 minutes to each of the 3 sections. That makes it 135 minutes. Now I am left with another 30 minutes. And then you can decide where to give that extra 30 minutes. Okay. So different ways of doing the paper. My suggestion would be that DM is something which you should look at giving 45 minutes. Okay. My suggestion is give 45 minutes to DM. It is usually sufficient. In the worst case, you may need to take this to 50 minutes. Try doing this in 40-45 minutes. Okay. And if verbal ability is your strong area, you should be able to do it fast. If quant is your strong area, you should be able to do that fast. So I would say, as far as this paper is concerned, as between the older XAT papers and the mocks, do a bit of an experimentation. As far as GM is concerned, give 45 minutes and try to play around with the time for these 2 sections. Okay. And remember, in one of these 2 sections, if you are good, you need to target a score which is about 17-18. It is eminently doable. 17-18 marks are possible in both these sections if you are good in a section. So something like a 17-18 in the strong section, if that means you have to give extra time, so be it. So please work out what works, what is the best method for you. There's no standard rule, and you should experiment. What I want you to also remember, that since there are no sectional time limits, time management is your job. In CAT, it is easy. Someone else is doing the time management for you. They have decided 40 minutes per section. You do it yourself and move on. And you, at the end of 40 minutes, they'll tell you move on. You are forced to move on. I'm sure many of you would have realized when you were taking IIFT that the last section you did not have sufficient time because you messed up your time management somewhere. So please remember that you stick to your time limits. In the next 3 to 4 papers, you should be able to fix the amount of time you want to spend in each of the 3 sections. And after that, you just stick to that time limit. Okay. My only caution would be do not give less than 40 minutes in DM. DM should be greater than 40 minutes. Verbal should be greater than 50 minutes. Quant should be greater than 55 minutes. This is the minimum you should be giving to any of the sections. Anything less than 40 minutes in DM is going to be a challenge for you to handle the section. Similarly, less than 50 minutes in verbal or less than 55 in quant is not going to be good for you. Okay. I hope this is fine. Time management part, which some of you are asking. A related thing to this is what is the sequence? I normally follow the sequence, but you could decide for yourself. I know many people who want to start with quant and finish it off early. And similarly, some people want to start with DM. Okay, so please experiment, work out. Everything is fine. You need to be clear about the sequence and the time limit per section based on whatever your comfort level is. Okay. Now, couple of things. Okay. This is what I've already said. Okay. Please figure out decision making. My recommendation 45 minutes. However, if you think you can do it comfortably in 40 minutes or you need extra 5 minutes, so be it. Don't try to rush. This is an important section. And strategically allot time to your area of strength. Quantitative ability has become easier over the years. Okay? The level of difficulty of XAT has become closer to that of quant or that of CAT. And which is why XAT papers before 2015 or 2016, before 2016 we can take, are not very useful for QA. Okay, though you can still go through those papers, but you'll find the questions there would be slightly more difficult. And if you go back earlier than that, you'll find the questions are going to be a little more, let's say, of some different topics also. Okay. But QA typically has the highest cutoff now. It is in the region of about 11 to 12, and which is why I said your target should be to look at about 12 marks in QA. It is a language and decision making paper. Remember, 2/3 of the paper almost is about language and decision making. Quant will help you get a good score, but alone it is not sufficient. It is you need to do well in the comprehension part. Pragya, this is your paper. And Pragya, I hope you have applied for XLRI, BM and HRM both. My request again, slightly off topic, but when you're applying for XLRI, please apply for BM as well as HRM both. Secondly, please apply both for Jamshedpur and NCR. Apply for both. Okay. So Pragya, that is why you need to be targeting. And I hope, Pragya, you are a non-engineer. I presume you are a non-engineer because maths is something which is an issue with you. So a girl non-engineer, you have a 1 mark advantage over everyone else as far as HRM is concerned. Great. So something positive at least for you. Okay. Critical reasoning, verbal, critical reasoning. So this is where you need to look at level 3 questions. So while quant, QA, I will say stick to level 1, maximum level 2 questions. As far as critical reasoning is concerned, please go to level 3 questions. Okay. Yes, Khushi, absolutely right. So Pragya, then stats is your area. Stats is your area, Pragya. Then you know that data interpretation is something you could handle. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is your area. Then don't worry. You can and remember, you can get some 6-7 questions here and 5-6 questions here. You will be safe. Okay. Remember, every paper has chinks in the armor, and you need to identify those weak spots of the paper and maximize your score there. Okay. Okay. Back to what we are discussing. Okay. Now, some of you are asking me which ones to do, what papers to do. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just come back. I'll just talk about the mocks and the other stuff, what you should be doing. Okay. First of all, I think you have got 8 mocks. You have got 5 general mocks and you have got 3 countdown ZATs. Okay. The first one is in operation. I think it is on right now. Please take the mock ZAT, countdown ZAT today or tomorrow, as the case may be. But please do take all the 3 CDX. Okay. And these 5 mocks. In addition to this, old ZAT papers. ZAT 2021, 20, no, sorry, not 20, 19, 18, and 17. Okay. At least 3 of these you should take like actual papers. Okay. So these 3 and at least 3 from here should be taken like actual papers. All other papers, you should at least take them like section test. Okay. Others like section test. Because 8 papers, you will 8 papers plus if I look at all that papers under 7, 8, you will not be able to complete all of them. So please take them like section test. Yes, Ranit, CDX strategy will be, session will be tomorrow evening and will be recorded as usual. Okay. Secondly, as far as all ZAT papers are concerned, okay, as far as all ZAT papers are concerned, okay, as far as verbal ability and logical reasoning is concerned and DM are concerned, okay, in your aspiration account, you will find all ZAT papers, all to be done. Okay. Except 2011 and 2020. Okay. If you have a 2008 paper of verbal, please do that also. And when you are doing DM, please ignore the mathematical DM part. Okay. As far as QA is concerned, you need to be looking at 2015 to 2021. Okay. I hope this is clear. Any doubts, anyone? Okay. And in addition, as I said, 3 CDX. Okay. CDX 1 is today and tomorrow. So please attempt this one tomorrow so that tomorrow evening we can have a discussion on the same. Okay. And anything else? And yes, there are another 5 mocks plus 5 mocks. So this is your preparation toolkit. Okay. Okay. This is your preparation toolkit, and this is what you need to focus on. Okay. Now, this brings me to the end of the session. Anything you have in mind, anything which you think you would want me to discuss, but I have not covered? Couple of you I have told in the beginning of the session, I'll cover it as I go along. If I have missed out, then please let me know now. Hafiz Khan Pathan. Okay, what about mathematical DMs? Hafiz, they have not come for the last 3-4 years. You can ignore them. In fact, the mathematical DM has been reducing for quite some years. Last 3 years, it has become 0. Before, and it is similar to a DI set. And as I said, DI has now shifted completely to DI and LR has completely shifted to the QA section. Rishabh, the DM session I had taken would be in your aspiration account. DI sets are not difficult. Out of 3 sets, you will find 2 at least doable. Shishti, algebra, GO is not good. Shishti, if you can handle DI and arithmetic, you'll have about 15 questions. So it should be fine. In GK, it's a mix of both current and static. So I would not say ignore any one of them. As far as GK is concerned, I'm repeating, it has to be compendium plus mocks. And in addition to that, we'll conduct whatever GK session we conduct, you should attend them. Khushi, try sending a mail to them and see if it can be changed. Khushi, maybe you could just call them on the helpline and see if it can be changed. Otherwise, the only other way would be to possibly fill up another form using another ID, etc. But that is always avoided, should be avoided. No, Ashish, QA is not calculation intensive. Quant and DI are not calculation intensive, so don't worry. Now, if you want, you can go to this article on my website, on my okay, there's a question. I'll just take that up also. Yes, Anup, GK is not very, very important. In the interview also, they'll possibly check your GK skills or knowledge or understanding. And if you satisfy them, then it becomes irrelevant. And in the past, I have seen students with a 0.5, 1.5 marks in GK also making it to the final level. However, I would want you to prepare for it so that you get at least 5-6 questions. Okay? Yes, Srijan, I'll share the chat. Okay, let me just show you the website also. Yeah, if you go to my blog gpkafunda.in, okay, in this there's this article. How's that? This one. Okay. I'm sharing the link of this article with in the chat box. Okay, so the details of whatever I have said, we can go through this also. It will have almost all the similar information. So it will also tell you what are the things you can look at and so on and so forth. Okay. And yes, if DM is something which you need to prepare, then there's a DM 1000 course. Ankit, thank you for pointing this out. There's no negative marking in GK. Okay. No negative marking in GK. So I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. Okay. Okay, so I'll stop the share. I'll stop sharing. Okay, so any other questions from your side? Okay. No, Ashish, important question. Again, you seem to be asking all the right questions. As far as that is concerned, the sectional and the overall cutoff is same for all the section for both the campuses. The best thing that XAT has done is the XLRA is done. They are not differentiating between the NCR and the Jamshedpur campus. It's the same cutoff in both the cases. So whatever cutoff I have shown you for the last couple of years is the same cutoff for NCR as well as for Jamshedpur campus. Based on your preference, you will get the campus, and I'm sure everyone will prefer the Jamshedpur campus right now. Okay, Srishti, my email ID is gp@careerlauncher.com. Okay, I'll just share my number and email ID again. Okay, just shared my number and email IDs, and I'm available on WhatsApp and Telegram also. Okay. Okay. Yes, Prasanna, crossing the cutoffs ensures an interview call. However, as I said, your target should be about 40 marks. Minimum target should be 35 marks. Ideally, 40 marks you should be looking at. 40 marks is typically about 99 percentile in that. No calculator, Mohit. Calculator is not provided in that. Okay. Okay. So if there are no more questions, I think I will close this session. Okay. Great. So you can go through the articles on my blog, the gpkafundout.in. That's how's that. Any other issues, you can always connect with me. So thank you. I'll close the session now. Good night, all the best, and hope to meet all of you tomorrow after you have written the count on XAT 1. Okay, goodbye, all the best.